Bitcoin is less than 13 months away from the most decisive moment in its entire history. In 2026, governments around the world will make a decision that does one of two things. It sends Bitcoin toward $150,000, or it destroys it completely. And it doesn't matter whether you love Bitcoin or think it's a scam. What I'm about to explain goes beyond opinions. This is about money, power, and control, and a battle over the future of the global financial system. Whether you own Bitcoin or not, what happens in 2026 will affect your wealth, your savings, and your financial future. Let's start with where things stand today. As I record this in December 2025, Bitcoin is trading around $93,000. It's had an incredible run over the past 2 years. Many people have made life-changing money. Institutional investors are buying. Major companies are adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. Some governments are even exploring it as a reserve asset. But beneath the surface, something much bigger is happening. A conflict is forming between the old financial system and a new one, between central banks and decentralized money, between government control and individual freedom. And in 2026, this conflict reaches its breaking point. Here's why Bitcoin faces an existential moment. In 2026, multiple governments around the world will launch their own central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. These are digital versions of national currencies, fully controlled by central banks. The United States is working toward a digital dollar. The European Union is launching a digital euro. China already has a digital yuan in operation and is expanding it. More than 130 countries are developing or testing CBDCs. So why does this matter for Bitcoin? Because CBDCs are the government's direct response to cryptocurrency. They're digital, they're fast, they're programmable, but unlike Bitcoin, they are fully centralized and completely controlled. And here's the critical point. When governments launch CBDCs, they face a choice. Do they allow Bitcoin to exist alongside their digital currencies? Or do they ban Bitcoin and force everyone into government-controlled digital money? That decision will determine Bitcoin's fate. If governments allow Bitcoin to exist, it becomes the ultimate alternative to state-controlled money. It becomes the escape hatch, the way people opt out of centralized control. In that scenario, Bitcoin's value goes much higher, potentially $150,000 or more. But if governments decide Bitcoin is a threat, if they ban it or regulate it into irrelevance, Bitcoin collapses, and not slowly, quickly, because Bitcoin's value depends on its usability and adoption. If it becomes illegal or impossible to use, that value disappears. This isn't theory. We're already seeing it happen. In 2024, the European Union passed the Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation, known as MiCA. This law introduced strict rules for crypto. Exchanges must verify identities. Privacy coins are restricted. Regulators gained sweeping powers to monitor and control transactions. The United States is moving in a similar direction. The Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act is advancing through Congress. It would give the SEC and CFTC broad authority over crypto markets, requiring extensive registration, reporting, and compliance. China has already taken the extreme route. Cryptocurrency trading and mining are banned. Domestic exchanges were shut down. Citizens are prohibited from buying or selling crypto. Why? Because China is pushing the digital yuan and it doesn't want competition. India has gone back and forth, but is leaning toward heavy regulation or outright bans. Russia is considering similar measures. Many countries are following the same playbook. The pattern is clear. As governments roll out their own digital currencies, they are tightening control over decentralized alternatives like Bitcoin. Now, here's where 2026 becomes the tipping point. The Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of central banks, has coordinated the global rollout of CBDCs. They've targeted 2026 as the year major economies have these systems operational. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. And once CBDCs go live, competition becomes a problem. In March 2026, the G20 will meet to discuss global cryptocurrency regulation. This meeting will include the world's largest economies, and coordinated action on Bitcoin will be on the table. If they decide to ban or severely restrict Bitcoin globally, it's effectively over. Even if a few smaller countries allow it, Bitcoin loses most of its utility if major economies ban it. But if governments decide banning Bitcoin is impractical or counterproductive and allow it to exist within a regulated framework, Bitcoin survives and thrives. This is the fork in the road. Let me walk you through both outcomes. In the first scenario, Bitcoin surges to $150,000 or higher. Governments tolerate Bitcoin as an alternative to CBDCs. As CBDCs roll out, people begin to notice the downsides. Every transaction is tracked. Accounts can be frozen. Negative interest rates become possible. Money can be programmed, restricted, or even set to expire. That level of control scares people. And when people look for an alternative, Bitcoin stands out. It's decentralized. No government controls it. If you hold your own keys, no one can freeze your funds. As awareness spreads, demand increases. Institutions increase allocations. Companies add more Bitcoin to their balance sheets. Some countries quietly accumulate it as a hedge against the digital dollar system. Supply is fixed at 21 million coins. As demand rises and supply stays limited, price must rise. $150,000 becomes conservative. If even 1% of global wealth flows into Bitcoin, prices above $500,000 per coin become plausible. In this world, Bitcoin becomes digital gold, a store of value in an era of programmable money and monetary control. The network grows stronger, mining expands, Layer 2 solutions improve usability. Bitcoin cements itself as a permanent part of the global financial system, and banning it becomes increasingly unrealistic. There's no CEO to arrest, no server to seize, no company to shut down. Even China couldn't eliminate it entirely. Governments may conclude regulation is better than prohibition. If that's the choice made in 2026, Bitcoin survives. In the second scenario, Bitcoin collapses. At the March 2026 G20 meeting, major economies agree to coordinate a global crackdown. Crypto trading, mining, and possession are banned. Banks are prohibited from processing crypto transactions. Exchanges are shut down. Penalties are severe. The official justification is consumer protection and financial stability. The real reason is control. The ban is announced across major economies at the same time. Bitcoin's price collapses immediately. Liquidity evaporates, mining becomes unprofitable, fear spreads, a death spiral begins. Mining shuts down, security weakens, confidence disappears. Bitcoin doesn't go to literal zero overnight, but for practical purposes, it's dead. The value tied to global adoption vanishes. This doesn't require shutting down the network. It only requires eliminating Bitcoin's usefulness, and governments are capable of doing exactly that. So which scenario happens? 5 factors will decide the outcome. First, CBDC adoption. If people resist CBDCs, Bitcoin benefits. If CBDCs are widely accepted, governments feel confident banning alternatives. Second, the status of the US dollar. If the dollar weakens and de-dollarization accelerates, Bitcoin becomes more attractive. Third, political pressure. Lobbying, voter sentiment, and institutional influence all matter. Fourth, enforcement capability. Bans are easier in authoritarian systems and harder in open societies. Fifth, international competition. Countries that allow crypto attract capital, talent, and innovation. My view is that the most likely outcome is heavy regulation rather than a total ban or full embrace. Bitcoin survives, but with constraints. It won't go to zero, but it also won't reach its full potential. So what should you do? If you don't own Bitcoin, consider a small allocation. Not money you can't afford to lose, but a modest percentage that gives you upside without catastrophic risk. If you already own Bitcoin, reassess your position size. Consider taking some profits and diversifying. Watch the March 2026 G20 meeting closely. Signals will come before official announcements. Use stop losses if you're trading. Diversify across assets. Control your own keys. Stay informed. Have a plan. Above all, stay rational. By the end of 2026, there will be no debate left. Bitcoin will either be on a clear path toward $150,000 and beyond, or it will be fading into irrelevance. There is no long-term middle ground. This is the most important moment in Bitcoin's history. So stay alert, stay informed, be ready to act, because the decision is coming. Are you ready?